Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Katie Peace, and I'm the Director of Communications for the Preservation League of New York State, and we're very happy to have you here for today's author talk. And I want to thank our sponsors, the Peggy N. and Roger G. Gary Charitable Trust, who underwrite all of our Preservation Book Club programming. So if you've made your way to this webinar but are not familiar with the Preservation League, we empower all New Yorkers to use historic preservation to enrich their communities, protect their heritage, and build a sustainable future. The League is a nonprofit, and we are indebted to our members who help us make this work happen. So thank you to all of you. We provide grants that jumpstart preservation projects. We advocate for preservation at the local, state, and national level. We provide technical assistance, collaborate with local colleagues across the state. We award excellence in historic preservation, and we are currently seeking nominations for our Excellence Awards right now. We draw attention to at-risk historic sites through our 7 to Save program, and we offer engaging virtual programs like the one that you are tuning in for today. And so a little bit about what we're going to do here today. For the Love of Renovating is a brand new book. It came out yesterday, and I'm very excited that Barry and Jordan are going to be here to talk about it. The book is the inspiring, game-changing book every fixer-upper needs, whether the project is budget remodeling or a full gut renovation. We are thrilled to talk through this. I think a lot of our audience are the old house DIY crowd, so I think it'll have a lot to offer you. If you haven't already gotten a copy of the book, I highly recommend you do so, and I can drop a link in the chat for that as well. A little bit about Barry and Jordan, aka the Brownstone Boys, who you may know from Instagram. They have a great feed. You should go follow them. They're interior designers, authors, DIY-ers, and renovation project managers based in Brooklyn, New York. They share a passion for old homes and everything that comes along with them, including the details, the quirks, the character, and especially the parts that need lots of love. The spaces they create marry that historic charm with a clean, modern design. Barry and Jordan's work has been featured in HGTV, Real Simple, Architectural Digest, Domino Magazine, New York Magazine, Rue, Apartment Therapy, Good Morning America, and on Magnolia Network. This is their first book, and we're so excited for them and proud to celebrate with them today. Following Barry and Jordan's presentation, they'll be joined in conversation by the Preservation League's own Caitlin Maives, our Director of Preservation, and I think they're going to have a great conversation following their presentation. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Barry and Jordan to get their presentation started, and I will see you all later.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was an amazing introduction.
Please follow us everywhere and give that introduction.
That's amazing. We are so excited to be here. This is such a treat for us because preservation and restoration of these old houses that we have the privilege of working on is really true to our hearts, core to our ethos, and it's what we just really enjoy about what we do the most.
Yeah, we're really excited to just dive in. We have a slideshow we're going to go ahead and present for everyone. And thank you in advance if you already purchased our book. And if you haven't, Katie, I appreciate you putting the link in. For the Love of Renovating just came out yesterday. And it's been such a wild journey for us, as this has been 2 years in the making. We started our business 5 years ago, which we're going to tell you a little bit more about. But having the book out in the world is really surreal, and having a conversation with the New York Preservation is just one of really a dream come true. So thank you for having us.
So one of the biggest questions that we get is how we got started and how we came to do what we do. And we love talking about it because it's a little bit of a crazy story and a little bit of an unexpected journey for us. And we can go way back to what we did before we started doing this. And we both had a little bit of a background in architecture and design in one way or another. I actually wanted to be an architect all throughout my schooling. When I was 8 years old, I used to draw floor plans of houses. My family thought I was crazy, but it's what I always enjoyed, even from a very young age. And so I knew I was going to architecture school, which I did, but I did not make it through architecture school. And I ended up changing my major halfway through to the College of Business, got a business degree, and went into software sales. So quite far from my dream of being an architect and wanting to design houses. But pretty soon I had my opportunity to buy my first apartment, which I did some renovations on and sold. Then I bought another apartment, did more renovations on it, lived in it for a bit, sold it. Then I bought 2 apartments and renovated those. And I ended up over the course of about 10 years doing that several times and getting the hang of designing a space for someone else. And my real passion was for the really old houses, really old places where I bought a place in and were able to restore. So I had a little bit of background in real estate and doing my own renovations before we started.
And I didn't have the experience that Barry had. I rented my very small studio apartment in Prospect Heights, Brooklyn for 15 years. I moved to New York 2 weeks before 9/11. And I saved every penny in hopes that one day I was able to buy an apartment. A little background on my journey through design and architecture is I was a baker, put myself through film school working at a bakery. And the guys that owned the bakery were incredible, and they were expanding and needed help designing a kitchen space in their new bakery that was opening up in Manhattan. So it became a passion project of mine. They asked a couple employees to help design this kitchen, and I just expressed how much I really enjoyed doing the floor plans of this new space. And they ended up referring me to an ice cream company at the time that had two small shops in Brooklyn, an ice cream company called Ample Hills Creamery that has expanded into an empire over the last several years. But I joined Jackie and Brian and I helped them project manage and design over 15 ice cream shops in the course of 5 years. So I threw myself in New York City code and I became very familiar. And that's when I say the stars aligned, and that's when I met Barry. And we started dating. 2 weeks after we dated, we took a bike ride throughout Brooklyn and we realized each other's journeys in design architecture. And we shared a mutual passion of architecture, especially around Brooklyn brownstones. So 7 months later, we put all of our savings in together and we bought a Brooklyn brownstone, hence the name Brownstone Boys. And I remember in the process of us buying our brownstone, we were having difficulty finding a lot of the answers to our renovation questions. We just weren't finding the answers. So I suggested to Barry that we start a blog, putting all of our learnings out there, and hopefully it would be a helpful resource for someone that was going through our journey, as we really didn't know where to start, and our funds were very limited. So we knew we had to tackle a lot of the DIY projects ourselves.
And one of the things that attracted to the house we bought is all of the original features. So that you're looking at the entryway to our house as we were kind of restoring it and doing some paint stripping on the original woodwork. And we loved all the old features. We had original plaster moldings, original woodwork throughout the house that was slathered in paint. And we really wanted to restore all of these features, save as much as we could, and replace what has even been taken out of the house, because our house was carved up into a bunch of apartments. So we had to really kind of undo some of the renovations that have been done over the years, which is a big part of what we do now in our client projects. And we really, like Jordan said, didn't really know how to do that. All of our past experience didn't prepare us for all of these really detailed, original, artisanal type features that we had to restore. And so we really dove in. We started our blog and our Instagram account. I'll never forget when Jordan told me he had the idea to do that. And I was like, sure, maybe our friends and family might read it. No big deal. But it did definitely very quickly go beyond that. And people started asking us questions, and we developed a community around our project. A local blog and real estate website called Brownstoner, which some of you may have heard of, started running our blog. They reached out very early on and asked if they could simulcast our blog on their website. And we were thrilled for that because loved Brownstoner. We were avid readers of it. It was, very true to everything we love in Brooklyn. And that was a dream come true. And it really motivated us to write very regularly on our blog about every single thing that was happening in our renovation. I think we wrote at least a blog post a week for about 2 years with never missing a week. So we ended up with lots of content on our blog as we went through our project and others.
And throughout the blog, about 6 months into it, people were reaching out left and right, asking us questions, and we were giving out tons of advice and our learnings and really helping them problem solve things specific around to their renovation. And finally, it sounded like more people needed additional help. So we asked somebody if they would want us to hire us to tackle their project, and they immediately said yes. We met them for coffee, and lo and behold, we had our very first client. We were hired as the project manager and interior designer, and the clients wanted us to work with them from the very start. They just purchased their brownstone in Bushwick that was in Bushwick, and they wanted us to work with them all the way through the entire process.
Yeah, and we throughout our renovation, we didn't have a lot of funds to spend on it, so we had to DIY a lot of the items in our house. So we brought in professionals and artisans that could help us do all of this restoration, and we worked alongside them. And so we really owe them so much for teaching us all of these beautiful restoration and preservation techniques. We stripped all of the woodwork in our house, many, many, many layers of paint. You lost all the detail in the wood. We were able to restore all of that. We restored our plaster moldings all throughout our house. And working alongside these artisans is where we developed the skills and the resources. So, getting to know these people, understanding their passion for what they do, it helped us develop a passion for that as well. And so as we moved into having client projects, we had that passion, we had the skills to do the work, and we had the resources of these artisans that we could bring into our future projects. And so it really gave us the ability, we felt like, to bring a lot of value to our clients, since we had all of this kind of at our fingertips at that point.
So fast forward, and we're going to come back to the journey, more of that, but fast forward to present time. Over the last 5 years, since Brownstone Boys has kind of progressed, we now have renovated over 25 historic home properties here in New York. We've done projects in Manhattan. Most of our projects are here in Brooklyn. Work is keeping us in high demand here. But we did tackle a project, a historic home, a carriage house in Chicago as well. So that was a lot of fun. And like I said earlier, just yesterday, our very first book, For the Love of Renovating, came out. And when our book agent came to us and asked us to write a book, at first we were shocked and had no idea that a book would ever be in line with kind of what we were going on our journey. But then we met with the agent, we had lunch with her, and we really thought about it as an extension of our blog. And we went back to those days that we were writing every single week. And the thing that we love most about that is the community that we were embracing and really having honest conversations around preservation and restoration. So we jumped in at the opportunity. We wrote a proposal, and we really wanted this book to be a resource for anybody, not just if you have a historic home, but maybe somebody that has lived in their house for 30 years and not sure of how to tackle a project that they've been wanting to do for years. Maybe a renter that has been renting for years and just wants to revamp their space, but do it in a renter quality way. Or someone that was looking for a dream fixer-upper that one day they can make their forever home.
And we do have a full chapter in the book dedicated to historic preservation and historic homes. So anyone out there like us that has a historic home and wants to know how to restore all of those beautiful features, we do talk a lot about that. We had so much fun writing that chapter, probably one of our favorite chapters
For
in the
sure.
book. But the rest of the book, we wanted to be for anyone that has any house to tackle any project, whether it be a whole house renovation, a single room renovation, or even just looking for a fixer-upper. And so we really followed in the sequence that the book goes through. We followed the same process that we go through with every single one of our clients. Sometimes that actually involves helping them find the right house to fix up. What should you look for? What should you look out for? Who should you bring with you? What questions should you ask? How to organize the renovation? Who to bring it? How do you assemble the team? Who needs to be involved and what are their roles? How to build your budget for the project, which is super important and one of the biggest questions that we get as well. And then going through room by room and understanding, how to design your kitchen and what components go into it, the bathroom, the closet, the living room, your flooring and molding and things like that. And so we tried to be as thorough as possible, and we tried to explain things in a way that people can really grasp it and it not be too overwhelming and confusing for them. And there's a couple of things that we built in that I really love. One is Jordan's really great idea from his past in the food industry is this idea of renovation recipes. So at the end of each chapter, we have a renovation recipe that kind of breaks down that information into kind of like easy to follow steps, just like a recipe that you might follow for cooking a meal. And the other one is the budget breakdowns, which helps value engineer some of the things that we talk about. So if you are renovating on a budget, how can you accomplish a look to get the same look and feel, the vibe that you're going for, but to do it on a more limited budget. So we have ideas for that. So I love that we included those things. We really wanted to make it easy and make it for everyone.
For sure. And it was very important for us to have visibility to numbers. Many times you get a coffee design book and beautiful imagery, but you have no idea where to start to achieve the look of that. So it was important for us to transpose numbers on the pages and, there can be unlimited scope, there can be unlimited budget, but everyone does have a budget, even our clients. So we're very cognizant of that, and we want to make sure that that was visible. All of the photography in the book are projects of ours, and one of the things that is very important to our ethos is starting with the original details, and we always assess any property that we get our hands on, what original details can be saved or what we can bring back inside the home. So these are two of our restoration projects. The left-hand side, we did do all of the wood stripping on. We restored those gorgeous doors on the hinges and that beautiful vestibule door as well.
And this project is actually one of our really so true to our heart because it was our third project. We've renovated over 25 houses, historic homes, in the last probably 5-6 years that we've been doing this. This one was our third or fourth project, and this was a true restoration. Every single thing you're looking at, we were able to restore. We have some before and afters coming later in the presentation, so look out for those. But restoring this woodwork that you see, if you see the plaster tapestry that's above the door that goes all the way around this entire floor of the house, it's all completely restored. A lot of parts of it were taken down, painstakingly replicated and restored. And then the floors that you see here are actually new. We tried to restore the original floors that were in this house. They were a pine floor. They didn't hold up very well. We really made our best effort, but they were just too far gone to restore. And we ended up putting in a new floor, but we put in this gorgeous floor that looks very true to the house. Looks like it could have been there all along. And so we're really happy to not only restore these original details, but be able to set this house up for its next, hopefully 150 years of life by renewing some of those features as well.
Another part of our design is mixing the old with the new. And also in the book, we discuss of how design for me can be somewhat overwhelming. The world of Pinterest, the world of Instagram, there's so many beautiful images thrown your way. And we talk a great deal about how to get design inspiration and how to think of it more organically as opposed to in the moment when you are renovating a house and on a crunch timeline. So thinking just differently and saving inspiration from different ways, whether it be creating playlists on how you want to feel with in a mood of when you walk into space. And that's something an exercise we always do with our clients is working with them on a music playlist, as that's how I'm inspired. And I want to know what playlist they want to hear inside their new kitchen space or their new living room. And that's something that really helps us develop a design.
But we really do, we always say, although preservation and restoration is where we begin every design, and that is what we want to be the star of the show in every, old home that we restore. We aren't trying to build a period piece. We're not trying to make a kitchen that looks like it's from the 1880s. We might not even leave the kitchen in the same location that it was in the 1880s because modern living calls for the kitchen to kind of be more where everyone is living. So for us in Brooklyn Brownstones, it usually means moving it from the ground floor where it would have been originally, where the ceilings are lower, you don't get as much light, up to the parlor floor where people are living and want to spend all of their time with their guests and their family. So that is not the way the house would have been set up originally. So we try to strike a balance between modernizing the house, making it functional for the family that's going to live in it, while keeping all those original details right up next to those new features that we build in. So this is a house that we restored that we're super proud of. And mostly because it had this gorgeous plaster ceiling that you see here at the top of these two rooms, we have the entryway where you have the original vestibule arch door, the original staircase. We added that vestibule tile. We do have new flooring throughout this house. This house was also chopped up into some apartments, and so we had to end up taking a lot of the new partition walls they built in. There were new floor, and that's a lot of times one of the biggest challenges for us, because we're not coming into a house that was perfectly preserved and all the original stuff is there and we just need to go in and fix it and restore it. We're usually coming into a house that's had a life. It's seen many lives over the years. It's had a lot of different types of people living in it. It's been carved up into potentially different apartments and used in a bunch of different ways, sometimes even as businesses, possibly where we're in a doctor's office, dentist's office. Our house had a daycare in it at one point before we bought it. So, a lot of times we're undoing a lot of that. And so we kind of have to build in new features because of that. But we're always so happy to be able to restore whatever we can. And you can see some of the modern elements that we were able to build in that play very nicely with those original features as well.
And on the right-hand side is one of the new kitchens that we put on the same project. And we did move the kitchen location on this one, but it was imperative for us to save that original plaster molding. So we kind of built the design around those moldings.
So we have the book that the way we wrote it, it goes through room by room. And we love pops of color in a kitchen. We do love some bold design. And so we have a few examples of that here. The one on the right, the green kitchen, that is in the house that we mentioned that was our biggest restoration project where we put the new floor in. So you can kind of see that inlay sort of like playing with that new kitchen with the gorgeous marble and the green cabinets. And the kitchen's always a place that we modernize, and you can see in the upper left corner we have an original floor. We have a new kitchen. The kitchen's pretty modern, but you do see that original parquet. You can sort of see where the original inlay was. We tried as best as we could to make the kitchen fit into where that original inlay fell, which it does for the most part, but you can definitely see that it isn't perfect, which is okay with us. It's just a little bit of character. But it was important for us to maintain that original floor since it was in good condition.
Good.
Oh, and then in the center here, that's that same house that was our big restoration project. The vestibule and the entryway to an old home, especially a Brooklyn brownstone, is always really special. It's always a place that has lots of original features and things to restore: woodwork, plasterwork, a lot of times stained glass, and this house also has stained glass. So it's always a really fun area. You can see also the original vestibule tile. We were able to save and restore the wainscoting all over the place. But again, we do often modernize. So if you see the lower left image, that is a new door that we put in. It's very important to this family to kind of have a little bit of a indoor and outdoor lifestyle for their kitchen. And so you can see original plaster moldings there, but you also an original fireplace, of course. But you also see that modern door, bifold door that opens up and gives them that lifestyle that they wanted. And we go ahead.
And they got additional pantry space, which is a big obstacle in these long, narrow spaces that we work on, is storage and where you're hiding all the necessities that you really don't want on display. And that pantry that you're looking at in the lower left corner was a big talking point, and I think it just fits in really beautifully.
Okay, so we have some before and afters for you. We weren't gonna let you off without showing you all these gorgeous before and afters. It's always so fun to see how things transform and the dramatic effect. So this is the same staircase, believe it or not. You can see how the before image on the left, how that extra partition wall was built in there because it was carved up into separate apartments. Fortunately, the staircase was preserved, the railing there, so we were able to save it. The plaster molding that you can see that we restored on the right side, that was also there, so we were able to make sure that was still a big part of the design. And I just really love the way you get this sight through. Right when you walk into the house, of that window that leads to the backyard, you get a really nice light all the way through the house. You get a really nice sense of the space. And so this is a really dramatic before and after that we always love to talk
The
about.
clients really specified that they wanted a light and airy lifestyle, and that was important, even bringing that light white oak floors, hardwood floors, and obviously getting rid of all the carpet throughout the house.
So this is as we restored that entryway that we've showed you guys in the beginning. So you can see the close-up picture of it here. This is sort of what this is as we were stripping the paint. You can see some of the paint stripping happening in the background there. We do a lot of paint stripping. If you've ever seen our Instagram feed, you'll see lots of lots of that
Lots of
happening.
stripping.
Lots of stripping, as we like to say. But we were also able, there was some structural stuff that had to happen here too. We actually had to jack up that staircase and then put a steel structure under it because it was leaning a lot to the side. And we really wanted to keep this original banister. We really wanted to not mess with a lot of the features that were there. And so we were able to restore that. And you'll see we also restored the top of this newel post, because you can see on the left, looks like something's missing there. It's just a flat top of the post. So we had this ball that goes on top of the newel post, custom made, just to restore it to its original beauty. But this all came out very beautiful.
And brownstones usually are wood centric, they're very wood heavy, and that is one of the first exercises that we go through with our clients, and that is doing a stripping sample, because there's a parallel of how much wood you want to highlight in the house and how much stripping we're going to do versus new painted. But usually we do always encourage our clients to strip all of those paint layers off. Every color of the rainbow comes within the stripping process, and we see it all lathered onto all the
Layers.
woodwork. But we really assess the wood in the house, and that's one of our first design components.
So this was a beautiful plaster restoration. You can see that arch. If you look at the before, they had filled it in with a wall. We obviously started some demo on it when this picture was taken, but they closed it off to make a room. They built that wall on the inside. It's also very crooked, as you can see in that photo. Over the years, things have settled. So we also had the opportunity to straighten it. We added that plaster medallion back in the dining room where it probably was originally. You can also see our new floor that we installed in this house that is very much so made to look like it fits in this
Nothing
era
inlaid.
of a home.
Yeah.
A little bit of a kitchen restoration here. This is again a kitchen that was installed over the decades that was a little galley kitchen, probably a little apartment, I think, that they had there. We had the opportunity to build in this beautiful new kitchen on the parlor floor. Fireplace restoration. The picture on the left, it was painted. We actually had to strip the paint. So this is when the paint was stripped. You can see the wood looks a little raw, wasn't yet finished. We unfortunately couldn't salvage the tile. So we put this beautiful marble into it where the tile used to be. Kitchen restoration. This is where we actually left the kitchen on the garden floor, on the ground floor where it would have been originally. So again, you can see kind of a semi-modern kitchen that was put in over the decades. And we made a beautiful new kitchen. We put this big picture window in overlooking the yard. So again, kind of keeping original features where we can, modernizing where we have to. A little bathroom that we built that has a vintage vibe to it. This is a clawfoot tub that that was on premises at the house that we were able to salvage and work into this bathroom and into this design. So we're able to create something that had a little bit of original features in the house. And a lot of times we do end up potentially moving things around. So if something doesn't work where it is, if we're putting in a new kitchen and there is a little bit of a balance, sometimes we might have to move some stuff out of the way to do that. We usually try to find another home for it inside the house. And where we can't, we find another house to give it a home.
And this was one of our largest projects. It was actually featured on Magnolia Network if you watch In with the Old season 2. But this was a project that we call Clinton Hill Carriage House, located in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. And a huge part, it was a parking garage. Originally, back in the 1800s, it was a carriage house. And then over the last life it led, it was a junk shop. And that's when the clients took it over after the junk shop's life, and they wanted to turn it into their family home. So a large part of this project was the restoration of the facade. And I'm just blown away looking at this and what a huge project this was. But brownstones are usually 20 by 40 feet, and this one was 20 by 90. So there was a lot of space. Because of that, because of the New York City codes, we had to put light and ventilation. We had to do an open courtyard in the middle of the property, which was just a design dream to work around.
We also often add new components that look like they would have been original. So you can see that in this house, we added this archway and this, actually the crown molding you see and on the right side is also new. The ceiling molding, the wall molding, the picture frame. This house needed a lot of things rebuilt. Of course, we kept our beautiful fireplace. Um, but a lot of times when we do have to add something into the house, we want to make sure that it is in keeping with what it potentially might have looked like. Bathroom that we built in this house, just, something that was very serene and beautiful for the client. We kept our original window trim around the windows. This was actually a condo that we did. It was pretty dramatic change from the 80s glass brick and the little cramped kitchen. But just a pretty dramatic transformation there too. This was the back of a house where it actually originally didn't have a center window. Um, and there was this big blank spot in the middle where you might expect to see a window and have more light coming into the house. We really wanted to bring more light in. We were hesitant to do the big blow out the whole back and make it very modern with a new big bifold door, although a lot of people do like that. So we came up with the idea of just adding this arch door in the middle. That way it kind of fit in with the house a little bit more. It had a lot more character and detail, added an extra element, but still let in lots of light and gave them access to get out to the new deck.
And we had to put a nod into Sesame Street. It is what both encouraged us to move to New York as kids. I grew up in Las Vegas. Barry grew up in New Orleans. I didn't have historical homes in Las Vegas, and I just remember watching Sesame Street as a kid and dreaming of living in a community that embraces just everything. We dedicate our book to Sesame Street. And yeah, we're just really excited that our book is out there, and hopefully it is a helpful resource that is what encouraged us to start our blog.
So I guess we'll turn it over to you, Caitlin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jordan and Barry, for sharing all that architectural eye candy with us. So reminder to folks, if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A and we'll try to get to them. I'll kick us off with a few questions here to get us going. So you two, definitely have a clear stylistic point of view as, a duo. I'm curious, when you both had kind of done some design work on your own, when you came together to do your own house, did you have to kind of reconcile your two styles? And I guess two-part question, what advice can you give to folks who have their own home projects that they're working on that maybe they don't know what their style is? You talked about the playlist. I love the idea of like what playlist do you want to hear? I always go straight to the visual, so I love that. But yeah, can you talk a little bit about how you reconciled your different stylistic point of views and maybe tips for folks who are trying to find their style?
For sure. I lead with color always. I'm a very colorful person inside and out. Barry is a very neutral person, and I say this in the best way. And when we've got our house and we start designing rooms, and I was wanting to put paint colors on every single room, and Barry's reaction I'll never forget because he looked at me like I was crazy, and we're never putting a color wall on here. Needless to say, we're in our office right now that we just painted this beautiful purple color. So within time, I leaned into his neutrals and I went along with it, and we have lived with white walls for 5 years, and we slowly introduced the color that I was yearning for so bad. And now he's grown to really love it. He just visually needed to see it in a space. So we started small and then working our way larger. So now we're adding color throughout the entire brownstone, and it really transforms anything. I use that as a reference.
And it's just about, compromise. If you're renovating an entire house, there's room for everyone. Maybe someone wins in one room and someone else wins in the other room. You get a bathroom, you get a bathroom. And so if you are renovating a whole house, you have the opportunity to do that. If it's just one space, maybe there are some components. If you're renovating a kitchen, maybe the cabinet color can be neutral, but the tile can be a pop of color, the backsplash. So I think there's ways to kind of compromise on it, but I think that's really the key. And for us, we balance each other out pretty well. So, it is great that I really prefer neutral spaces and neutral colors, and Jordan likes color, because as designers, when working with clients, we're prepared for whichever direction the client wants to go in, and we're prepared to put together a balanced design.
And so like if someone's just starting on their journey, what's maybe a first easy step they could take to try and figure out, like, am I a neutral person? Am I a color person? What do I want, a time capsule? Do I want something more modern?
So we always recommend, I mean, this sounds pretty basic, but we always recommend that you save your inspiration when you see it. So if you're scrolling through Instagram or Pinterest, or out at a restaurant or staying in a hotel, create a folder, create a Pinterest board, save those items when you see that beautiful kitchen, because what will happen is when you sit down to design your kitchen or to really think about it, or whatever space you're designing, you'll remember that you saw something you liked, but you will never find it again, and you are just Googling kitchens and you're not finding things that you like. So when you see it, save it. We get inspiration from everywhere, including online, including when we're out to dinner and traveling, through Europe and seeing a beautiful tile, or staying in a hotel. We're like, oh, I love the way they put this together. So we save inspiration as we go so that we can draw on it when we need it. And I think if you created a folder for kitchen stuff, you might start seeing a theme. You might have 100 pictures of completely separate kitchens, and that's okay too, because you can pick out things that you like in each one. But saving your inspiration and organize it in a way that you can access it later, I think, is really important.
And like you said earlier, there's different ways of looking at inspiration. If you're a visual person, the photos will be most helpful. But again, I'm the music person. I love listening and feeling a mood in a space. So for me, music is really inspiring. But there's other ways. If you're like a runner and you see the way that you like some architecture, or maybe there's a round curve that you really love, how can that play into your design that you're starting to think about for your space?
Love it, love it. Okay, a little bit different direction. Question from the audience. What health and safety issues have you encountered, such as lead-based paint? How are you protecting yourselves and your crews?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that we take very serious. We do follow proper PPE, and we make sure that everything is inspected by professionals before, if it's a DIY project that we know we're going to take on. And I'll use the wood stripping as an example. So Barry and I, when we just got our house and we saw all of the wood, and this was going to be our first time stripping wood, we made sure to hire a professional first to walk us through the proper PPE, but also the understanding of if there's anything that we need to get inspected or tested for lead, to make sure that we're doing it properly. And it's something that we bring into each and every project. All of our crews are OSHA certified. They are properly certified. And if they're working on the full place, then we make sure if there is lead involved that we don't tackle this as a DIY project, obviously.
And we have all of our projects inspected for asbestos and lead, and we have it properly remediated if it needs to be. And with lead, you can either encapsulate or you can remediate. And so we'll follow the right precautions with that. But it is definitely something to be considered. If a house is older than like 1960 or so, you're probably going to have these things in the home in certain places. So having them inspected and making sure you know where it is, and then know what to do to properly get rid of it or make it safe.
Yes, it's not all just, fun and games, right? With old house renovating. Got to have safety first. So kind of along the same veins, I think I'd heard you guys in another podcast talk about how you've assembled kind of your team of trusted crafts and tradespeople. And probably most people on this call know that, we are in a crisis, especially with the preservation trade specifically, that there just aren't people coming up with that expertise as the current generation kind of retires out of the field. So do you have any advice, any tips for finding tradespeople, for once you find them, securing them and never letting them go? And I guess maybe how have you assembled your team?
Yeah, that's a great question, and also one that any opportunity that we can use craftsmen, craftswomen in projects, these tradespeople that specialize in beautiful original details is something very important for us moving forward. And we developed what we call renovation family. Maria, our wood stripper, Peter, the guy that works on our stained glass, Raoul that does our plaster medallions, and we really hold on to them and we bring them into each and every project. And if they want to grow their teams, we're making sure that we're keeping them as busy as they can be and also employed for however long they want to be employed. Because for us, it's just something that we need to keep this art going, and it is a dying art, and it breaks our heart. It breaks our heart that contractors are suggesting to people just ripping everything out, and that's not acceptable. And we need to, Barry and I are huge advocates that we are going to fight in any opportunity that we can fight to bring it back in and keep these beautiful tradespeople alive in their craft. Sorry, I get very passionate about that because
Yeah. We love it. We love it.
I feel like I'm amongst family here, but yes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You know you're right. So we just have a comment from Angela. She says, thrilled for your success. Your advice was incredibly helpful 2 years ago as my tiny West Village co-op underwent a gut renovation with aerial design and build. No question. Just a huge thank you for your tremendous knowledge and generosity.
No, thank you, Angela. That's great to hear.
Thank you.
What was it like for you guys shifting from designing your own space to designing other people's spaces? Did you feel more pressure to kind of get it right? How was that? How was that emotional journey?
Yes, for sure. I mean, it was a really big adjustment. I mean, we learned so much in that first client project that we had. The client, our first client, knew they were our first client. You know, we were very upfront and honest with them that we were going to be figuring it out as we go. And because although we have some resources, we've gone through our projects, we have our prior experience as well. We've never really done a client project before, so it was a huge learning process for us. So we had our first client project. We learned so much from it. The client was a real pleasure to work with. It was also during COVID. Like COVID struck like kind of halfway through that project, so we really learned a lot there as well. But we very quickly had a second client and then a third client, and so we started figuring it out and creating repeatable processes, which we now have done even more to do that, so that we can make the client experience as smooth as possible. And we now have employees as well. We have 3 architectural designers that work for us, so they help smooth the process as well. We have a lot more projects now too. But yeah, it was a really big learning in that first project, and we're still learning, but that first project was the big one.
For sure. And also we did our house before we had clients, and now we work on much larger projects, more beautiful projects. So we always want to change everything in our house, and we look at everything, and it's just a constant project, as I think all old homes and homes in general, there's always a project to do. And Barry and I, at the end of our workday, and we're on job sites, usually 9 to 5, we come back and we're like, let's fix our office. Let's change the layout in our living room. But it keeps it fun and it keeps it exciting.
So it sounds like, you were talking about how you've been gradually adding color in. So you still have the bug to kind of keep tweaking things in your own house.
Yeah. I'm sure he wants to kill me because I'm the one that definitely is indecisive, and you can tell in how many times we change spaces.
I feel like in a couple, there's always the one who wants to keep changing things, and the other one who's like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah. Yep.
So
I'm the earlier.
So Jared asks, what has your experience been, if any, working with LPC? And for folks who don't know, LPC is Landmarks Preservation Commission in New York. They're the city agency that reviews changes to designated historic landmarks. So Jared wonders if your ideas have always been in alignment with LPC.
Well, I mean, we definitely appreciate the existence of the LPC. It's just so important, even when things are a little frustrating with dealing with them. The fact that they are here and work and doing the work to make sure that, you know, the beautiful neighborhoods that they protect stay as beautiful as they are is just so important that it's kind of worth jumping through the hoops. And I guess we kind of have to remember sometimes when we're frustrated with them is that, you know, we're not trying to do something that is not in keeping with the neighborhood, but a lot of people are. There's a lot of developers who would knock down anything that they could to build something new. And that is what they're here for. And so when we find it a little annoying, it's because, well, we're not really trying to do that. But we still think it's really important. We're usually in alignment. I mean, it does make it more expensive for someone to go through a renovation. We do think that sometimes things are a little over the top, especially things in the back of the house that you can't see as much. But still, we think that having them around and them doing their work is more important than those little things that we have to deal with.
Yeah, and I would say 8 out of 10 of our projects are in the landmark districts here in Brooklyn. So it is a process that we are becoming more and more familiar and having an understanding, especially over the last 5 years, and just having a firm understanding of where LPC might be coming from.
Another viewer writes, just received your book, will be inheriting a Bed-Stuy brownstone. What would be my first step if I want to renovate the top floor, which had been used as a rental unit?
I think come up with a scope of work for the project. I mean, I think if you're just going to renovate one floor, make sure that think about what that final state might be, like if you are going to tackle the other floors in the house too, and try to set that floor up so that it flows with that. Some things to think about are if you're moving around like bathrooms or kitchens or whatever might be in the place, you're going to have to set that where it needs to be on those lower floors if you're going to renovate the top floor first, so that when you renovate the other floors, it's ready for you. And so I think that's some of the things to think about when you're phasing work, if that's what you're doing. But coming up with a scope of work, you can write a bullet pointed list as a scope of work, so you don't always have to have CAD skills to be able to do that. And coming up with a budget as well. And so we have some tips for that. If you have the book, that's amazing. We have a whole chapter about, building a budget, building a scope of work, and those initial steps you could take kind of before you start talking to contractors and architects and whoever's going to be involved.
And some helpful resources on how to find the right contractor are also in the book that I wish we had when we were in the market for one.
That's right. Yes, everyone can all benefit from Jordan and Barry's their learning curve, so you don't have to go through it yourself.
You're welcome, Eric.
So when you guys were doing your own brownstone, how did you decide what to DIY versus hire out?
Yeah, I knew Barry and I were not touching the plumbing or the electrical, so that was the immediate. And anything with the bearing wall, we were also not going to toy around with. But we did hire a contractor to kind of oversee those subs and also help with some of the structural items. Everything else cosmetic, and I say that with the wood stripping, were projects that we were wanting to do as a DIY project.
Yeah, things that are cosmetic are usually pretty easy to DIY. So installing tile, painting, even installing like trim work, some light woodwork, the restoration of the wood and staining and finishing and things like that. So there's a lot of things you can do yourself. Lots of really great resources out there, books, YouTube videos that can teach you how to do it. Some trial and error is also usually nice. But yeah, it is fun to kind of get your hands dirty and learn some of the skills to do these types of projects. And so we always encourage people to do that.
So I know for a lot of folks, myself included, get caught up in I have to do it perfectly. I don't have the skills. I don't have the knowledge. And I'll just spend forever researching and figuring out and never actually doing the thing. Did you have to face that at all?
Yes, definitely. But one of the things that we recommend that really helps you DIY a project and be motivated to do it is getting the right tools. A lot of times you can't do the project and you're afraid to do the project because you don't have the tools to do it. So if you want to install trim work, you need a really nice like chop saw to do that with. If you want to do tile, you need the right materials to do that. So I think making sure you have those right tools so that you can actually do the work, doing some research into what you do need. I mean, you're just kind of like giving yourself that confidence that you can do it, which is one thing that we really wanted to do with the book. Like one of our big goals with writing it was to empower people, to help people feel confident about going through this process, that you understand terminology, you understand the different parts and pieces that go into a kitchen and a bathroom. And so that's definitely one of the things that we wanted to do in the book, and with all of our content that we produce, motivating people, helping them feel like they can do this stuff.
And hopefully the renovation recipes at the end of the chapter, where we do break down, designing a kitchen and all the tools that you'll need, or adding picture frame molding and all those tools, and then the directions on how to do it. Hope that could be a quick summary for someone just to skim through, make sure they have their list, all the tools, and then they can apply that DIY project.
Yeah, so it sounds like the book is really, your goal is to really give people like a little confidence boost, that foundation, so that they can like be ready to dive in.
100%.
Awesome. Okay, totally different direction. Angela asks, working on such old properties, have you ever encountered ghosts?
We always talk about it, and it's a fun topic to think about. And a lot of the houses we go in, I mean, there are some pretty scary looking things happening that we're very confused about, but not directly.
Knocking on wood,
yeah.
we have yet to find a ghost, thank God. But we have found some really cool things. We found of course, we find newspaper from like early 1900s. We found one as early as 1903, used for leveling floors. We found an original Elizabeth Arden lipstick capsule that we found out from the homeowner was worth tons of money.
One of the creepiest things we found was an old gun, like a gun from like the 1800s, and an old rocking chair, and they were sealed up in the ceiling, like the attic space of the house. And we were like, what were they doing with a gun and a rocking chair in the attic? Very strange.
And thank God there wasn't a ghost next to that.
I mean, if the rocking chair started rocking by itself, we would have run. But
So what would you say, do you have like any, when you were doing your Brownstone project, did you have any like just to humanize you a little bit, because you guys seem like you've accomplished so much and have all these impressive after pictures. Did you have any disasters along the way?
Yeah. I mean, every project is an exercise in problem solving for sure. So
I always think back to our backyard renovation that Barry and I also, after we just finished or halfway finished our house, gorgeous hardwood floors were just sanded and stained. Then we're like, let's tackle our backyard. But we didn't think at the moment that we have to get up the stoop through the house and down the new deck stairs to get to the backyard, because we just had rented out our garden apartment and we couldn't access through the ground floor. So I just remember, after all this beautiful hardwood floors, the leveling sand just going everywhere throughout our house. And for me, it was just like, and it was a full day of us just going in and out, carrying like 80-pound bags of leveling sand to our backyard. And we probably could have done that differently.
We always talk about one of our biggest mistakes in our house, which is kind of funny, is we put a light switch on the wrong side of a door.
Yeah.
So it's the wrong side of the door swing. You open the door and it's behind the door. It has been on our list to fix for 7 years now. We have not fixed it yet, but we will sometime very soon. It's in a guest room that we don't use very often, but it's definitely one of those things that after the house was done, we're like, why did we do this? What were we thinking? But there's always something like that. There's always something to fix. There's always something to problem solve. Renovation is not an exact science. Nothing is perfectly straight. Nothing is exact. It's just all about kind of making things work and fitting them together and doing a lot of on-site kind of reaction to what's happening. So that's part of the fun. It's part of the process.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, like with not getting caught up in like perfection before you start. Like just it's just start the process, right? Like, you know, you'll figure it out as you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're never going to be able to prepare for like every potential mistake or disaster.
Mhm.
Yep.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to touch on?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered everything pretty thoroughly. And we do have, like I said, we take on a lot of projects these days. We have, I think, 8 to 10 right now. So we're growing pretty actively right there. We also do a lot of as much as we can to produce content online and YouTube videos so people can follow our projects and talk about specific areas and skills that we can. So we kind of do both of those things in tandem. We really do enjoy things like this and helping people understand preservation, restoration, the process to go through to renovate a house and transform your space. It's why we produce content. It's why we wrote the book. It's why we've done some TV shows as well, because it's enjoyable to we've always enjoyed that community aspect of having people sort of that have similar interests in us in design and preservation. And it's fun to hear from people and answer questions, so we always welcome that too.
Yeah, and I think also just as we are with our people right now, I think that as we are getting the book information out there, it's helpful if there's local libraries or local bookshops or antique stores, places that this audience really loves, that we can learn from you guys, where we should ask to do a book signing or just a book conversation with other people that just have this passion of saving old houses, and preservation and restoration. Then we're with our people. So curious to hear from everybody and appreciate any suggestions.
And if folks are interested in following you, learning more about your work, or if maybe they want to look into hiring you, where can they find you?
Yeah, for all of our project information and our how we work with clients, probably our website is best, and that's thebrownstoneboys.com. But for all of our social, if you're in long form video, YouTube at Brownstone Boys, also on Instagram, TikTok. We don't do any dances, sorry in advance. But all of our socials are at Brownstone Boys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jordan and Barry, for sharing your knowledge and putting this book out into the world and chatting with us today.
Our pleasure. Thank you both for having us.
Thank
Means
you
a lot
both.
to us.
This was really fun.
Yeah, thank you both so much. Thank you all for tuning in. Friendly reminder to buy the book. We love when people buy books. We love books. Thank you. And hopefully we'll cross paths again. And hopefully all of you in the audience will join us for another book talk someday soon. And tell your friends to watch the recording. It'll be up on YouTube within the next day or so. So have a good one, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.